And then this one is so gorgeous on the right, just very
Hmm.
modern, contemporary. I just love
That's
that.
in the book.
I love that.
Um,
And is that just feathers that you've?
it's edible rice paper.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
it's
I
so
love that.
easy,
I
so
love
easy.
that. And
Yeah,
in your book, do you have instructions on how to do all of
yep,
this?
yep. Instructions and lots of photos. I made sure in this book I included lots of photos, more than I have in my other books, just to make everything really clear. I think just from reading reviews on my previous books, some people have commented, "Oh, great book, but not enough photos to show." To show how the steps, and part of that is just because there's not enough space to fit everything in. So
Yeah,
in this
that
book,
happens.
exactly, in this book, I made sure I kept the descriptions as to a minimal as possible and just showed lots of photographs. Yeah, and in the book there are some quite a bit more complicated projects that you really need to see how to do it. So I made sure we had just more photography in there. So I think it's better this one for that.
That's really nice. And they are gorgeous, gorgeous cakes. So definitely,
Thank you.
definitely worth looking at the book. That I think that's. We're actually going to put up a link in just a second. We actually have a picture of the book with a link for the actual book where you can
Hmm.
go to find it. So we've provided a link for that. But if you take a look again at the one on the left, it's that really cute eyelet lace look.
Hmm.
That's really pretty.
That takes quite a long time to do the eyelet with the eyelet cutters and then the overpiping.
Okay, well, good to know.
Quite fiddly. But
All
again,
right.
it's you can simplify it. You know, you could maybe just do two tiers with it on, and then two tiers that are plain, and just
Mm-hmm.
simplify the design. So
Yeah. Okay, and then you have your next two cakes, or they're not lace cakes necessarily, but it's just really fun. Are these in your book also?
yeah, exactly. So I think the next four photos, again, they're just projects that I've included in my book, um, and yeah, it just shows how to make them. And
All right. Okay, so this is the book right here. Is that
hmm.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. It is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm sure, as you can see, the pictures are stunning, and I'm sure that the directions and all of that are just as amazing. So, let's see. I will let's see. I will throw up the link right here. Let me throw that up for you guys so you guys can see that. Okay, right there. It is www.cakefu.com/vintage. That's the best way we could show you
Hmm.
guys how to get to it. Otherwise, I mean, it's on Amazon, but it's a really long link, so we shortened it for you. So if you want to go check out Zoe's book, cakefu.com/vintage, and that'll take you to where her book is that you can order it through Amazon. So definitely worth looking at. Um, all right, let's see. We have a few questions rolling in, I believe. So let's go ahead and take some questions here. Okay, let's see. Someone asks, is that Fonderific fondant that you're using on your cakes?
No, it's not. I've only just heard about Fonderific.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I must be new. I only heard about it from actually watching Marina Sousa's class because she was making fondant, different fondant, designer fondant techniques, and she was rolling it really, really thin. And I was thinking, there's no way you could do that with the fondant we use. Well, the fondant that I use anyway. So I did the thing, what's this called, and saw Fonderific. And then I tried to look for it here in the UK, and I saw just one website that was selling it, but it was the buttercream one. I don't know if that's the right one to use.
You know,
Um,
there's the
yeah.
different kinds, but the buttercream one is basically the standard flavor, you know, that most people will
Uh-huh.
use on a cake. The thing that the Fonderific does is they do different, you know, flavors and things with
Uh-huh.
their fondant. Usually it coincides with the color of the fondant, so that's very
Uh-huh.
interesting.
So yeah, I just found it on one place. It was the only place over here. So is it quite new? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been around for a few years now. I know that
Okay.
a lot of people have been using it. Maybe it's just fairly new in the UK. I'm not sure, but it has been. It's been around at least 4 or 5 years.
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah, don't know. But I use Renshaw's Regalized, which is really soft, really soft. And in the summer, it's like toothpaste.
Oh, really?
It gets so soft, and you can literally pick it up, and it feels like hardened toothpaste. It's really, but I just that's all I've used in the 7 years that I've been making cakes. That for me, it's just what you're used to using. I tried satin ice when I went to teach in Dubai, and it was just on one cake, and I didn't really like it as much because it was much stiffer.
hmm
So
It's
yeah, it's just Regalized that I use.
it can be a little bit harder to work with the satin ice. You have to really know what you're doing and be used to that
Mhm.
texture, I guess.
Mhm.
So, all right. As we're going through these questions, just before we get too far into it, just for those of you that might have come in late, if you have a question for Zoe and want it answered, we have the little chat tab on the right side of the screen. If you tap on that, it'll bring up a chat box. You can type in your questions there. So go ahead and get in your questions to Zoe, and we'll get those answered. So, okay, our next question is, have you ever tried this method on modeling chocolate?
What method? The
Uh,
pressing lace in, or
I'm guessing, yeah, using the lace or the
I
applique
haven't
or
tried it. I haven't used much modeling chocolate either. Um, I think it's very done over where you guys are, but over here everything's still more sugar work. But I think from having access to all the online tutorials and from a lot of the American cake makers coming over here to teach, we're sort of slowly getting introduced to everything, and people are using it a lot for modeling, for covering cakes, you need half and half, so mixing modeling chocolate with fondant to get a half-half mix. Um, yeah, so I haven't really tried, not too much.
okay.
I'm sure it would work though.
I bet it would, you know, as long as as long as it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest issue would be it be becoming sticky. But I mean, as long as you have a good modeling chocolate recipe, I don't see it being a problem at all.
Yeah, because I
So,
know some are harder than and firmer than others. So, and I guess the climate, if it's not too hot and yeah.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Okay, let's see. Our next question is, what size tip do you normally use for your piping, and how do you keep it from clogging?
I normally use, if it's just general outlines, maybe a 1, either a 0, a 1, or a 1.5.
Okay.
It depends on the job. But for the overpiping on the embroidery cake, I would try and use a 0, double 0, or a 0. To stop it from clogging, you need to make sure that the icing sugar is sieved. It's usually just with a 0, 0, and perhaps 0 if it's going to clog. And
Mm-hmm.
make sure, yeah, the icing sugar is sieved before you make it. And also, which I sometimes find the girls in my kitchen, if the lid's not been shut properly, they'll get crusty bits in the tub, and then when you mix that, you'll get some of those dried bits, and then they'll go into your icing, and they'll be the bits that clog up your nozzle. And what you don't want to do is start ramming cocktail sticks or needles down it, because you ruin the nozzle. You just open up the hole, make it wider, so it's no longer a fine nozzle. So
Yeah,
just be careful.
and any little nick or scratch that you get inside of that will create a groove in your tip.
Yeah.
and cause the icing to do different things.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. If I can jump in and add a couple of suggestions, one thing that I've learned through the years is that you take an actual nylon, that like a knee-high sized nylon, and you put the royal icing inside the nylon and into a bag and just pull the nylon through, and it will strain out any of the
I've
bits.
not heard that.
Oh, really? I heard
it.
I know, I heard of it a few years ago, and I was like, oh, I love that tip.
Ah, good.
And it works really, really well. And then the other thing, like you were saying, if you don't put the lid on your royal icing, it can get crusty and stuff. What I do is I take some saran wrap and cover it like right down along the surface, so there's no air at all. I tap it down so that there's no air coming out at all, and then I will put a damp paper towel on the top of that, and then I'll cover the whole thing with another piece of plastic wrap, and then put my lid on, so that I know for sure that there's no air getting in there. It's not going to dry out and get crusty on me. So those are the things that I do with my royal icing. So maybe that'll help somebody. All right. Let's see. How can I apply color to the rice paper? Powder colors. And someone else actually asked, can you airbrush the rice paper? So I guess that kind of goes.
Yep. I'm sure you can. I've never tried airbrushing it because I've only just recently got an airbrush, and I've used it about twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just don't have time to play around with it as much. But I'm sure you could, because the air from an airbrush, the liquid that goes through just evaporates straight away, and you just get the color out. So I'm sure it would work. The ones I think they did on the book, you can either dust with luster to get the color, or you can spray it just with luster spray, or probably just the aerosol colored sprays. I think Wilton do just colored sprays. Yeah, the only thing I find with some of the sprays, which aren't as good as the airbrush, is that when you press them, they're kind of like, and they just come out really quickly, whereas the airbrush you can sort of gently spray.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the airbrushing, from what I know of rice paper, is that it's okay to airbrush it as long as you do just a really light coating. If you get it too wet, it's going to start wrinkling up on you.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And there's actually a cake lady over here in the UK, and she's known for making rice paper cakes. They're absolutely amazing, really gorgeous. And she does all coloured ones, and I said to her once, how do you get them like that? She's like, I make them, or make the rice paper herself. So she colours it herself.
Really?
And I hope one day she'll give me her recipe and show me how to do it.
That's really cool.
They're amazing. She makes beautiful, beautiful rice paper cakes. If you want to have a look and check her out, she's called Linda Fripp, Fripp. And sorry, I'm just plugging my laptop back in. If you take a look at her website, her rice paper kit is so nice, all different colours and yellows, pinks. Really worth looking at. Really lovely.